Well, good morning, Danielle. I think we should just start off where we normally start off. Can you just tell us a bit about yourself and what you do for Dell Technologies?
I am actually a higher education strategist. I get the really cool job of being a point person between Dell Technologies as a corporation and a technology service provider and an innovation hub, build that bridge between those two entities because, corporations have a very complex structure and educational institutions have a very complex structure. And so being able to help bridge that gap and help translate the language, because they don't always speak the same languages either. So that's what I do a lot. I speak at conferences, I go to tech days, I partner with different schools and universities that are really trying to push innovation on their campus. Prior to joining Dell Technologies, I was actually Associate Director of Information Technology at University of Colorado Boulder here in the United States. And I loved that job too, but Dell Technologies was just a great opportunity to be able to interface with just dozens and hundreds of different schools across the country and really help them innovate with technology. So all of that being said, you may be saying, I didn't hear esports in there anywhere. What are you talking about? So one of the funny stories that I love to tell is the fact that when I went down for my initial interview at the Dell Technologies headquarters in Texas, they have an experience room where they have lots of different technologies that you can see and touch and interact with. And down there, they had a few Alienware battle stations set up. And I got so excited because we had all the RGB lighting and the curved monitors, and it was just incredible. So I have a 17-year-old son, and I asked one of my current teammates now, I said, can you please take a picture of me with this Alienware battle station? Because it's going to drive my son nuts. He's going to be so jealous. And so she did. And who is now my boss, our director of educational strategy, he said, well, so do you like games? And I said, yeah, I've been a gamer since I was a little girl. I love Diablo. I love Uncharted, all kinds of different games. And he says, really? Then I have a side job for you. So that's kind of how I got what I affectionately refer to as my side gig, which I get to be the sports subject matter expert for our higher education strategy and our customers. And so I have had the wonderful opportunity to work with so many schools and universities and even some K through 12s on how is esports applicable in academia and in education, and how can you build it into your curriculum, and how can you make academic opportunities for students utilizing esports, which they're probably playing anyways. So it's been a really great time. I feel very fortunate. I have a really cool job.
If I had to summarize it, I would say that it sounds like you're trying to move forward esports and academia and esports and education. And that's definitely the experience I've had. What I would really like to know is, how far do you want to go? How far can you see Dell taking this?
Absolutely. Well, one of Dell Technologies' driving tenets, and something that's come directly from Michael, is the fact that our main purpose is to help drive human innovation and efficiency and success forward. So, and you may say, well, how does esports do that? It's video games, but it's so much more than that. It is engagement and just getting, students who maybe didn't do anything else on campus, getting them engaged in an activity that they feel comfortable with and that they feel like, hey, this is my tribe. This is where I belong. These people like the same things that I like and are interested in the same things I like. And just creating that comfortable area and that arena for them to not only just live in, but compete in and have fun and play and build those relationships, and then also start to build some of those soft skills. And I'm sure we'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but really creating that inclusion and that diversity for students, just making sure that they have a place that they can call home, especially when, many of these students, like we're actually seeing across the esports programs that we work with, oftentimes like 70% of the students that are involved with these esports programs weren't involved in anything else extracurricular on campus or even in their school districts. They, were just they hadn't found their place yet. And if esports allows them to have that academic connection to the institution, it allows them to have that relationship connection with their teammates and their coaches and et cetera, and to really find their place in the world. That's really one of the main goals of higher education, especially. And so we feel very strongly at Dell Technologies that Esports is more than just the game. It is all of those connected tissues that surround the games that create inclusion, diversity, engagement, opportunities for academic application, opportunities for career advancement and technical education, and opportunities for research and academic thought about this phenomenon that has kind of captured the world's interest.
So it sounds like it's a very blue sky thought process here, whereby if you hear a good idea, you will try and support it as long as it connects to academia or education in esports. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we identify that there are so many challenges in the world today, but also in the world of esports, and it's such a new industry, it's such a new area of study, and so many things are being defined as we go for this. So, we don't want to limit ourselves necessarily and say we're only going in one particular direction, but something that we've been really excited about and that I thank the International Journal of Esports for being involved in has been, just the connections we've been trying to make between the academic researchers in the field of esports. Because, I think sometimes those opportunities get a little bit lost. And, we have this amazing group of PhD scholars and scientists and researchers and coaches and directors that we work with that are just all of them brilliant individually in their own rights, but together as a collective, they can't be stopped. And the world is this, like you said, the sky is the limit for what we can do in looking at how esports affects athletic performance, how it affects your physical aspects, how it can either harm or help your mental aspects, your psychological aspects. What does it do for advancing cognitive abilities? There's just so many different avenues of research. And so I've been so fortunate to be connected with so many brilliant minds that are just really pushing the envelope and pushing that forward.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. What I wanted to also try and tackle is, as you mentioned, esports is growing, it's trying to find its place. Can you tell us a bit about the struggles or challenges you face in your job role and in what you want to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with anything that is fairly new, and it's so hard. It feels so wrong to me to say that esports is new because it's literally. I mean, you have games like League of Legends that have been around for years, almost decades. And so it feels wrong to say that it's new, but it truly is. I mean, and especially esports as a collective force and an industry and a study field, is fairly new. And so I think you have the same kind of challenges and obstacles that any new field of research does, like, a few years ago, AI and augmented reality and virtual reality and things like that, just taking a look at so many aspects of esports research. You get into it and you scratch that first level surface, and it is about, okay, the technical aspects, like let's get the logs from the games, and then let's take the brain waves and patterns of the players, the student athletes, and what are they doing and how are they reacting and how is it impacting them. And so those are kind of like the initial hard details that you can start with, but then you start expanding that area of focus out to, well, what is the ecosystem of this? What are the economics behind this? How is this going to affect interactions between people? Or the virtual interactions they may have in an esports tournament going to be as beneficial or potentially as detrimental as some face-to-face interactions for live sporting events that are maybe more in person? So there's just, each time you take a step back, much like any new field, there's just more and more and more that you can think about that are ways to study how esports is affecting the players, how esports is affecting the world, but then also just, where is its place in the world? So I think that that's a challenge as far as, it's kind of that a little bit of a chicken and egg thing where we really want to focus specifically on esports and be defined, but then there's this whole world around it that you could focus on. So deciding where you want to put that focus, as to what you were saying, Aaron, is a little bit of a challenge. I also think that there's a little bit of a challenge in the aspect that esports as an industry and as a field has grown organically, and it has grown from interest, and it has grown from availability. And so it was not necessarily something that started with those kids or those communities that maybe needed that inclusion and diversity, needed those opportunities. It started with a pretty privileged group of individuals that had access to technology. And along with that comes a whole host of environmental factors, psychological factors, et cetera, as far as how those people that started it and kind of got the jump start in this particular industry, how they react to things, how they participate in the world. I mean, I don't think anybody is unaware of some of the challenges as far as, sexism, racism, et cetera, that are present in esports as an organically grown industry, an area of study. But there are so many people now that are focusing on how do we make it better? Like, we know that this is an amazing thing, an amazing kernel, but because it never had those structures of inclusivity around it, and diversity and economic availability, how do we actually make that become a part of it, but not lose its organic self? So, just so many different great organizations. Girls Who Game here within Dell that we work on is trying to get those 4th through 9th grade girls and keep their interest in STEM and get them interested in gaming and say, hey, this is a cool place for you to be. And here are other women leaders in technology that can help you with that. Just creating programs like that where the focus is on that inclusion and diversity, I think is so important. And I've just been very excited to see the focus on that from some new organizations that are coming up and that are getting more important in the esports world.
I think you mentioned something interesting that I didn't really think about a lot, which is that at the beginning of esports, it was really the privileged few that got to compete. I think you're probably right. It's the people that, had access to probably expensive computing technology. So I guess we're in a bit of a conundrum with that problem, because at the same time, esports is certainly seen as an equalizer, right? Most people now have access to a computer. So do you think the general strategy should be that we should be pushing more towards mobile esports, for example, where more people have much more access to a smartphone than a computer? Or do you think we should go the other way and think, we should be providing more computers and sophisticated equipment to less privileged people or children? Do we do both? Do we do everything? Do we do a few things? How do we deal with that problem then?
Yeah, it's tricky because, everybody knows that you can't do everything you want. There's just not resources, time, availability, et cetera. I think that mobile gaming is going to get more and more popular. We're actually starting to see an uptick in interest in, like gaming laptops as opposed to desktop rigs. So, just being able to make sure, and I think the current world situation has shown that being able to make your gaming home wherever you are is more important than ever. So I think that that's one aspect of it. I think, like you said, mobile smartphones, that's going to increase the availability of it across the world, just due to the saturation of, mobile smartphone technology and that kind of connectivity across the world in areas that maybe don't have strong infrastructure systems. So I think that's great. I do think that, at least our current focus has been on getting more advanced technology in the hands of those who maybe didn't have it before. So, a variety of organizations, like one I'm gonna name drop here is like Varsity Esports Foundation, from Kansas City. They specifically work on trying to get that technology into the hands of school districts and higher education institutions that are in rural areas, that are in urban areas that maybe didn't have access to that kind of technology in order to play and game at that high of a level before. So I think the more that we can focus on just providing those opportunities to those students, to those players that maybe didn't have it before, I think the better that the inclusion, the diversity, the acceptance within the esports world is going to be.
Yeah. What I wanted to really ask, and it's a bit unfair, is if I were to teleport you to 1 year in the future, what would you like to see happen in esports?
Oh, live events. Live in-person events would be great. I think sometimes we miss that human to human interaction in person. I'm not 100% sure that that's exactly where you were going with this. I think you were maybe
It
asking
wasn't,
if
but
there
I
like
appreciate the curveball. I was thinking more about your personal ambitions and goals with your team. What kind of connections would you have liked to make? What would you like to see in, for example, the school kids that enjoy the benefits of the work that you do?
Absolutely. I would love to see more focus on research. Like I mentioned, we here at Dell Technologies, we know that research drives the world forward. And so I think just continuing the relationships that we've developed with so many of these amazing schools and programs that are doing esports, not only just the esports programs for kind of the connection and the community building of it, but also taking it that step further into academia and into research and really saying, how can we drive this forward? How can we make esports safer for these student athletes? How can we make sure that they're getting the rest they need? How can we make sure that they're getting the physical activity that they need? How can we make sure that we are structuring programs and tournaments in such a way that they are healthy and that we don't have athletes, esports athletes burning out at age 23? That's so not sustainable for the sport or for the athlete or for the programs. So just trying to really move that needle forward is definitely where I would like to be in a year. I'd love to see more research come out, more access to research, just being able to easily go out there and find information, whether you're a coach, whether you're a director, whether you're another researcher, whether you're a student athlete, just being able to know, these are the scientifically proven standards that are going to make us safer and healthier so that we can do this amazing thing we love and are engaged in for much longer than just a couple years.
Totally agree. I think that's what the health focus of esports will be, to avoid injuries and to avoid burnout, because we definitely don't have a handle on it yet. We're seeing a lot of that with a lot of the celebrity esports players now. A lot are retiring a lot earlier and quite unexpectedly from what we would have imagined.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, and this is on a completely different note, but I know a lot of people listening are listening to you and wondering, how do I get involved with what you're doing, or how do I join your team? Can you tell us how people could do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, reaching out, there is a web page out there. If you do like a Google search for Dell Technologies Higher Education Strategists, you can reach out there. My bio information is out there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter at HighEdDanielle. And I tweet a lot about higher education and learning and things like that, but I probably tweet way too much about esports. So I'm out there. So, feel free to connect with me. And, I try to definitely amplify a lot of the great work that's going on from the researchers that we're affiliated with. So, just go out there and connect with me. But as far as, career path and et cetera, my personal career path took a very windy, twisty curve to it. I started out, after I had kind of gotten my bachelor's and my master's degree, working in a variety of roles in IT and software. I was a tester and a test program manager and a systems analyst and a business analyst and a development manager and, all kinds of things and different roles within information technology. But I never lost that love for gaming and just the way that games made me feel, the freedom, the just becoming entranced in the worlds that were created by video games and being able to play with others and talk about it with others and just kind of generally overall being a big geek. So I would say, as far as like a path kind of to get where I am or to do similar things to what I'm doing, absolutely studying, building that firm foundation of technical knowledge and those soft skills of how to interact with people, etc. But I would also say just like don't lose who you are. If you love gaming, and you're interested in it and you're driven by it, there is just a complete wide open world for the opportunities there. It's one of the things that we always tell students in colleges and universities when we go and speak and present to them, is the fact that, it's actually a pretty small percentage of people that are involved in the esports industry that are professional gamers. I saw a statistic here a while ago that said something like, for every one professional gamer that there is in the esports industry, there's probably a team of about 10 supporting them when that comes to HR and payroll and marketing and arena setup and communications and social media and etc. So don't feel like, just because your degree was in one certain area, or your experience so far in life or in your professional work has been in one particular area, that you can't get into esports and be involved in that industry if that's truly a passion for you. There's so much opportunity to really carve out your own way and to make your own career path, especially now while it's still in, so much of its early years. So I would just say, rather than prescribing, well, you have to go get a degree in this and you have to get work experience in this, just keep your love and your passion for it front and center, and take the opportunities as they come. When I interviewed for the job that I currently have as a higher education strategist, I was not looking to necessarily, get a job that was going to allow me to talk about gaming and to be involved with such cool stuff every day. And I was just very fortunate and lucky that it was a part of this particular job. So don't underestimate things, don't overlook opportunities, and be willing to, let your geek flag fly in whatever you're doing.
I have to reiterate that. I think the two similarities I've heard in any person who's actually employed to work in esports to whatever degree they may be involved in has not had any form of predictable pathway to their job. It sounds incredibly convoluted, and the common denominator there is that they've shown motivation and interest in esports. So, as Danielle said, if you're opportunistic, I think that's the main thing to have. And as a plug-in, I think that's a nice segue. What we're trying to do in IJESPORTS, and something that Dell has been one of the earliest supporters of, is to organize more pathways to get opportunities for students into esports. So one thing we're trying to organize is an essay award and research prizes for students across the world who are trying to show their interest in esports and have done really interesting work. One thing I wanted to ask you is there anything that you think could have been done better in your sector of academia and esports and education? Have we made any mistakes already?
Oh, that's controversial, Aaron.
That's what I want.
Let's see, areas I regret. I think maybe just thinking about it from an academic standpoint, not recognizing the opportunities that are here. And, one thing that I think in academia, so much, rightly so, is focused on the students and what the students need, what the students are interested in, what is the future career prospects and opportunities for those students, and what are the students interested in researching. And I feel like there is a huge majority of institutions that maybe haven't seized upon that opportunity and haven't necessarily put their money where their mouth is, as far as creating those opportunities for students. I mean, we've seen that this is a huge industry, and like $1 to $1.5 billion worth of business in the esports industry alone, not even considering the gaming industry as a whole. So there are jobs, and you go out and you look on job boards like LinkedIn and etc., and they're out there and they're good paying jobs. So it's definitely a career field, and it's a research field, as International Journal of Esports is showing. But I don't feel like too many schools have yet seized upon that, especially just globally. Not too many schools. There are over 500 schools that have esports programs, but have you thought about how much farther it could go and how many more opportunities you could create for your students, rather than only having those great opportunities for engagement among players? Like, have you thought about pushing the envelope and taking it to the academic and the research level? And I think that there are very much certain schools that like Shenandoah University and New York Institute of Technology that are really trying to push that envelope. And I think that they are shining beacons of light in this. I think we could do more. I think more schools could go the way that those schools are going.
Completely agree with that. I think our journal should have been made 2 years ago. I think that when I talk to students, they now know about esports, but we have really not done enough to say, yes, it's about the players, it's about the technology, but there's that whole infrastructure. And I think I've noticed a few courses dealing with this gap, but academia always be forgotten. When it's probably the most pivotal, in my opinion, of them all, because it's going to deal with all the different sectors of esports. So completely agree with you on that. Is there anything that you want to talk about, or anything you think is important that we haven't already shared?
I think I would just ask for those listeners out there to just keep making your voices heard. I mean, I know that there is a tendency sometimes, and I don't want to be stereotypical because, as you can see, I'm kind of an extrovert and I love games. But I think that there's sometimes that stereotype, or maybe a tendency of gamers or people who are interested in gaming, to kind of just hang out in the background and not necessarily feel like their voice should be heard. I would encourage everybody who's listening to this, like, make your voice heard, participate in clubs, go to, if you're in university, whether you're an undergrad, a grad, wherever you're at in your particular school career or even professional career, like, seek out those opportunities, do it tactfully, do it respectfully, but push, because no change is going to be made unless the people who support it, love it, are passionate about it, get behind it and actually ask for those opportunities to be there. So whether that's an internship, whether that's a research grant or a study or an opportunity, or whether that's making esports the focus of your doctoral dissertation, those things can happen and we've seen them happen, but we can do so much more. But we need the support of everybody who's out there in the community to say, schools, I need you to support this. Corporations and industry, I need you to support this, because it's only then that the changes and the real push forward is going to happen.
Yeah, and to add on to that, if the first person you talk to isn't supportive, move on to the next person, because there are lots of people who are looking for interested people to join in their work and to move the sector forward. So yeah, keep looking. You will find someone probably quite shortly. Thank you very much, Danielle, for joining us today. If you are happy to, please do share your Twitter link and your contact details. I suspect you will get a lot of people reaching out to you because you're a very friendly person to talk to and extremely well connected. Just throwing that out there. So yeah, please do feel free to share whatever details you're comfortable doing so. Thank you very much.
Yeah, will do. Thank you so much for having me, Aaron.
Oh, pleasure. Bye, Danielle.
Bye-bye.